Hey everybody, and welcome to another Kinsta Talks episode. My name is Marcel Bootsman, and I'm the Partnerships and Community Manager for EMEA at Kinsta. And today I have with me in the call Tor-Björn Fjellner. Hi Tobi, nice to see you again.
Hi, Marcus. Nice to see you as well.
How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a bit chilly, but living in northern Spain is still much less chilly than it would have been in Sweden, right?
So, for the people that have just joined this Kinsta Talks episode and want to know a little bit more about you, can you share some more information about you?
So, I'm Swedish. I'm a professional translator and project manager. I so happen to live in Spain right now, as I mentioned, but I have been working in some 10 different countries throughout my life. I discovered WordPress 2011 when I had a blog already previously where I was writing in Russian about working in the Arabic country of Oman for my Russian friends where I had been working before. And I wanted to make this a free lingual blog. And for that, I discovered WordPress and started using it. This was in 2011. And I felt this was very good with free software that I can just use. Okay, PHP as well, but I can't really contribute to PHP because I'm not a coder. But with WordPress, I felt that, yes, I can actually help to make some things available in Swedish or Russian. Some of my translations back then were horrific or bad, really. So one of the worst translators I found is my previous translations from some years before. But yeah, so I started contributing to the Swedish translations, and very soon I found that I also I think it's from my project manager experience. I want people to feel welcome and to help them to find their ways around. So I started just mentoring other people who were translating to other languages or who wanted to translate to a new language where we needed to open up. So soon enough, some 8 years ago, I was suddenly one of the global mentors for the WordPress Polyglots team, which is the biggest WordPress contributor team. And it's quite easy to get started. As soon as you have translated one string to your own language, typically from English, you are already a translation contributor. So that's very easy to get started, but this downside is that there is no limit. You can contribute thousands of strings and you can check other people's strings. You can make perfect translations and you're still just a translation editor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's fun. And I like this way of being able to contribute to a software that I really like without coding.
Without coding, yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you for the introduction, Toby. Yeah, the Polyglots team, it's the biggest team, mostly because, what you said, if you translate one string, you are a part of the Polyglots team, and there are no boundaries. And I think the Polyglots team is really the one team in the whole WordPress project that has the lowest threshold to join. You open up the translation website, translate.wordpress.org. You pick out your language, you pick out a plugin or WordPress itself or a theme, and you can start translating. It's all pretty easy. And of course, there's lots of documentation available if you really want to know how and to do it. And it's great. It was my first onboarding to contribute to WordPress as well. And I still regularly do it, not as much as I want to do it, but there are luckily other people that do it as well. Looking at the Polyglots team, 2025, the year I think that AI became a little bit more interested for people to use also for translations. And I don't want to dive into the quality of AI translation right away. But looking back at 2025, can you share some of the things that the Polyglots team as a team has learned?
So, first of all, I should say that machine translations, which is a type of AI, has been around since 2005-ish, right? So it's not something that has happened suddenly, but it has evolved. And now with a lot of people playing around with various generative generative AI models and the LLMs, a lot of more people have come in touch with these things and have started using these also for translations. And of course, there are a lot of nuances, but for the limited time, we could perhaps have a thematic episode where we can talk more about these things. But for now, yeah, let's say that it is really mainstream now to use AI as a tool to make better translations faster. For me as a professional translator, I would say that ever since 2012-ish, I use translation enhancement tools all the time. And of course, they are getting better all the time. So we can see now that WordPress is much more translated, and one single contributor can translate so much more now with good machine translation in the bottom. But still, it is, of course, a personal responsibility, and you are contributing this translation, so you still need to double check it. And we still have in our general expectations for translations that no one should just upload unchecked translations to languages they don't know, because it is important that you get the feedback loop, and we still want that. And I think we all have seen some examples of strange user instructions on some stuff from China or whatever, where you realize that, okay, these guys just made the machine translation. They don't know the target language, and things are just totally upside down.
Yeah.
And we don't want to mess up the WordPress experience for users and site visitors by offering that level of translations.
Is it hard because obviously when a English string is translated to an international, let's say Chinese or, well, Dutch in my case, is it hard for these local translators to check whether these strings are translated by automation?
Well, whether it was automation or somebody not knowing, well, you see that it is automated when you suddenly have like 200 strings that came out of nowhere. Of course, the signs change from time to time, but there are certain telltales. For instance, the machine translation I use behind the scenes when I translate to Swedish, it's DeepL. It doesn't follow some of our the terms we've got in the glossary for Swedish translations, so I have to change it every time. Of course, if I would bother to start using one of the LLM systems instead, then I could have some filter prompt towards the end that will say that you should use these translations. But in general, I'm so happy with what I already get, so I can pay the price of fixing those few terms. And as a matter of fact, even though I am using good machine translation as a tool to translate faster, I rarely just accept a string as it is. There is almost always at least something I want to change, adopt, to make it more efficient, to find the more specific term that would convey the meaning. And also, of course, I should say that English as a source language is not that good, because you've got a lot of words that can have different meanings. It could be a verb or a noun, a verb or a noun. And if you don't know the context, you may not be able to translate this for sure correctly. So it's very important to double check your translations, to install your translations and look how they behave. And you should mainly translate things that you are using. Plugins you are using, the theme you are using. If you translate those things, then you will be able to go back and fix errors that you find.
Yeah, that's a great tip, to install the translations and use them yourself. That's a good tip.
Like dog fooding.
Well, that's what it is. If you translate these stuff and you think you know what the context is of every string you translate, and you use them yourself, and you see in a theme, I don't know, that a button has the wrong word or a strange word on it, you can fix that. And if you would only check the strings in the translate.wordpress.org, you would not see that. So that's a great tip to give our audience if you want to start translating.
Yeah, so a tip here
it.
to developers, if you have very short strings, try to add a translator's comment that will explain how this string is used. And if you have some super short thing like post, then you should use a different translation command that will include a context. At least you should say verb or noun if it is, and that way you can have two different strings that look exactly the same in English, but may need different translations both in Swedish and in Dutch.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's the perfect thing to
and
to help
also,
translators.
Yes, and also this is a message to all of you out there using WordPress in a different language than English. You may be the expert on how this specific plugin you are using looks in your language. So you can be a valuable contributor.
Absolutely.
Keep
That's a
that in
great
mind.
tip.
Yep.
Yes, that's a great tip. All right. So looking forward to 2026, is there any things you are particularly looking forward to about technical developments that are happening or developments within WordPress that you're looking forward to?
Well, we need to update the handbook for Polyglots a bit, specifically around these AI things. Of course, a lot of plugin and theme developers want their products to be translated to as many different languages as possible, but we need to make it even more clear now than previously how you can and cannot use and deal with machine translations. Because yes, they are getting better, but they are not, I would say, good enough yet to just let this train run ahead unchecked.
Yes.
We've got just now a draft about using AI in the development sides of things, and the main ideas there I like, and we have already since long general expectations that talk about not using machine translations unchecked on our side, but we will try to make this even more clear now. And then another big task we've got ahead of us is that we've got a long backlog of various locales that need to be checked and added to the system. So there are people who want to translate to some other language versions than those 202 that are already defined in the system.
Wow, how many are waiting, just out of interest?
Some 30-ish. I need to...
Wow.
Yeah, so this is the sad thing here that the global mentor team, we are also just, I would say, volunteer contributors, and we have more or less time. Of course, I have a few hours a week thanks to the sponsorship from Kinsta. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
But still, this is a task that will need a bit more time than I have had available lately.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes, adding a new locale is not just checking a box. It implies probably a lot of more work.
Yeah, I need to dig in and do some detective work on how this language handles plurals, for instance, and try to double check via various sources that the language name in its local language is correct, so that nobody's setting me up for a disaster on having something unprintable suddenly available in the system.
Yes, that's something you don't need. Well, it is good to hear that there are new locales being added, that there are still languages out there that people want to use WordPress in, which are not yet available, but it does take a lot of work. So if people here are watching and think they can contribute to the Polyglots team in any way, well, check out the WordPress.org website and find the Polyglots team and see if you can contribute, because we need contributors always. All right. Thanks, Tobi. I want to move on to this next thing that we're doing, which is the Uncached Opinions part of this call and interview. I've prepared 7 statements that I want to share with you, and I have to indicate that these statements are not my opinion or Kinsta's opinion or whatever. These are just statements to trigger a response and get the conversation going in little fast snippets. So, I want to start. You can just give your opinion, say agreed or disagreed or no opinion. That's also possible, of course, if you don't want to share your opinion on it. And if you want to indicate some extra information about your opinion, please go ahead, but keep it short. All right.
That's hard.
Yeah, I know that's hard.
When I translate things, I try to keep it short because
Good.
typically translations tend to be a little bit longer than the source in most language combinations. But sometimes you can find tricks to make things shorter.
We'll see what happens,
But
Toby.
that is not always, perhaps that is not uncatched because you do it first like this and then you think, okay, this way is shorter and better and more to the point.
Yes, that's the uncached thing of this, I just throw a statement at you and you give your opinion and we'll see what happens. All right, let's get this going. So my first statement, English-only development is the greatest barrier to the next billion internet users.
So this is a barrier, of course, but I think this barrier is quickly going down now, especially with AI support. Also, here is one thing I see in WordPress. We need translations in so many different areas. And one of the big tasks right now that you can put back into 2026 is that we need to streamline how we translate documents, content, instructions, training material, because all these things are right now handled kind of in different teams and a bit unclear how to do it and how, especially how to reuse good translations. For instance, when we launch a new WordPress version, how do we reuse all that is still valid because these are things where we can improve and need to do it.
Yes. Okay, the second one. AI translation will make human translation teams in open source projects obsolete by 2030.
No, they will not. As you already mentioned, these AI translations are getting better, but they still need to be checked, and the check will become easier afterwards. And that is the same. I mean, vibe coding will create better and better code as the systems evolve, but still at least you need to somehow quickly check that, yes, it is doing the right thing.
Right. If a plugin isn't localized, it shouldn't be allowed in the official WordPress repository.
So this question or statement is incorrect. What the developer can do is to internationalize, that is, prepare for localization. And in most cases, I mean, you can develop a plugin that doesn't even have any user interface, so there is nothing to localize. So I can't say that I would agree on this, and I would also say that it is up to the developer. There are certain situations where you can develop something directly in Brazilian Portuguese because you know that it will only be used in this thing. Or for instance, there are plugins that adjust for the Farsi calendar type that you only ever need in person, right? In Persian or Farsi. So they can safely use their own language directly in the code, and that's fine because we're never going to use this in Dutch anyway.
All right, so the volunteer model is broken. Critical open source infrastructure should only be managed by paid contributors.
No, I can't really agree on that one because the moment we say that everything must be done by paid contributors, we limit ourselves enormously. We cut off the supply of new contributors because the volunteer path is the way to learn about things in the same way that we can't really cut off the role of a junior developer just because we've got AI that can do a lot of these things, because this is the way you come in, this is the way you learn about stuff, and we still need it. But on the other hand, it is very important that we have some sponsors available who can make sure that critical web functionality will be around and that people can make a living while maintaining these things. And there are so many sad stories about some sole developer who is maintaining some very important tool, but, well, all the world is using this tool, but nobody even realizes that there is a real live person doing these things and they are struggling to pay their rent.
Yes, right. Open source mentorship programs are often just a way to get free labor for big tech companies.
Okay, so here I think it's important to find some kind of balance. It is on the back burner right now, a mentorship program for contributions to WordPress. It was done by volunteers. Okay, some of them were sponsored, some were not. Talking about me, for instance, I was quite active in that program, and it was a wonderful way for new contributors to find their way into contributing, to learn about people in various teams, and it was a very valuable thing. But that was not the way for some big tech company to get some value out of it. But yes, of course, on the other hand, when big tech companies run various things and they expect that they can have thousands of contributors do something in the competition, and then they will give someone the prize of $2,000 because they're the winner, then it's not that nice, because they are soliciting a lot of value and basically giving nothing back. Companies really should try to find some kind of balance between what they are getting and what they are giving back. Just in the same way that if you are, as a company, getting a lot of value from the fact that you've got PHP for free, you got WordPress for free, try to find some way to actually contribute back to all of this, because that is a way to get technical word where things still can exist. And that is a sad thing happening right now, where a lot of companies are trying to just extract as much as possible by milking the common good. And that is, of course, a problem.
Yes.
And we had a big scandal or schism in WordPress a couple of years ago centered around these things. You can always argue whether that scandal was done in a good way and with the right incentives. I'm not sure. But yes, this is something that companies really should keep in mind.
Yes. Yes. All right. Project management in 2026 is 90% automation and 10% personality. The technical project manager is a dying breed.
Thank you. That is on my professional side. So project management, of course, changes a bit, but I would say that what a project manager really needs to do is to make sure that the communication is flowing. It's about making sure that everybody knows what they need to know. It's about making sure that you have asked all the dumb questions that need to be answered for everyone to be on the same page. And it isn't dying. It's just that we now need to look for some holes and problems in slightly other places than before. But project management is still needed, although, of course, some of the repetitive tasks now can be done better automatically.
All right, thanks for that. And our final statement in this Uncached Opinions is: living as an expat makes you a better coder or manager because it forces you to debug your own life every day.
Well, I would say yes, but on a slightly different way. Because when you have been in touch with several different cultures and different languages, you start to develop some kind of separate understanding that things can be different. So at least if you are a coder, you won't take for granted that everything will follow the same way you would structure it in some American terminology, because things can go in a totally different way. You would not try to build a sentence in another language by translating each English word one by one and then gluing them together in the same order. It won't work, right? Because things are, the way we think in various languages differs. And when you know several languages, then you start to getting a feeling for that there is something here that I really can't name, because in this language we would call it like that, and in that language we would have the same word for that, and so on. So yes, it makes you more aware of the differences in the world, and that will make you a better coder, developer, manager, whatever. So try it if you have a chance. If you're right now in your late teens or early 20s, you are still not totally glued to a specific city somewhere, try working abroad a year. It will give you a lot of valuable experience.
Wow, that's a great tip. Thank you very much, Tobi. And about thanking, I want to thank you again for being in Kinsta Talks episode. I want to wish you a very happy day today, and we'll see each other in the next Kinsta Talks episode.
So I want to thank you for the possibility of being here, and of course for Kinsta sponsoring me a few hours every week. That's a great contribution to my life to make it a little bit more sustainable and to the WordPress project.
That's great to hear. And thank you for your contributions. You're welcome.